Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Crowd Chatter Podcast. Today we got ourselves another NFL video. As I said in my previous one, as this is now the second one I'm going to do, I'm going to do a bunch more. But I got a lot of NFL videos I'm about to do because I've been putting these off for way too long. And since the Hall of Fame game is today, and that includes the Jets and the Browns, and I have yet to even touch the East divisions yet. I want to get a bunch of these done, so I'm gonna be doing the South and the East today. I'll probably do the West next week, and then of course college football's coming around the corner here soon as well. So I'm gonna do those videos not too long from now. That should have Serbinsky and Calvin, and who knows, somebody else too. Might have more people on there. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are up first here as we start the AFC South. If I do this kind of quick, I'm sorry. I have a lot that I need to do still, and I don't have too much time, so I'm just trying to get through this stuff. So, as for the Jacksonville Jaguars, starting off for the season, they will be on the road against the Indianapolis Colts. And as I said with the NFC South, that might be the worst division in all of the NFL. And I say that about the NFC South. The AFC South might be the second worst division in all of the NFL, and it is certainly the worst in the AFC. So these South divisions are both gigantic messes. But we're gonna go over the Jaguars here. They start on the road against the Indy Colts. Then we'll get to play at home, play host to the Kansas City Chiefs, a huge early game. Although I don't think that the Jags will have to worry too much about missing a postseason spot. Then they also will be home to the Houston Texans. And then they have two straight London games, the first team to really ever have that before, as they'll get both Atlanta and Buffalo in back-to-back weeks in London. That Bills game is going to be a lot of fun. Don't know about the Falcon one, but Bills Jags should be very good. Then they'll have another game against the Indy Colts, road games against both the Saints and the Steelers before they get their bye for the season. Then they will take on the San Fran Niners and Tennessee Titans, both at home, before they go on the road to take on the Houston Texans. Then they'll get the Cincinnati Bengals at home. I mean, it's nice to have the Bengals at home, but it's still the Bengals as a really darn good team. Then they'll head on the road to take on the Browns. Ignore this win percentage. That is total bullcrap. It's just I copied these win percentages off of ESPN, so these are not my predictions. These are ESPN's, and yeah, I think this is total and complete garbage. Then you got the Baltimore Ravens at home before heading out to Tampa to take on the Bucks, back at home to Carolina, and then on the road to finish the season against the Tennessee Titans. So the Jacksonville Jaguars obviously were the team that came out of the AFC South last year with the Texans being absolute trash as they have been. The Colts still looking for a quarterback and never finding one and completely tanking last year. And the Tennessee Titans also finding their own quarterback problems and not really being able to get anybody that was healthy, and then trying to bring in Malik Willis to be the guy when Tannehill got hurt, and then Willis was so bad that they were trying to find somebody else, and it just didn't work. So the rest of this division is kind of a mess, and then the Jags are like the only good team out of here. Of course, their team still has some solid players with young, promising quarterback and Trevor Lawrence at the helm. Now, this Jaguar team probably would have been way better if it wasn't for moron Urban. If they didn't make probably the stupidest hiring in all of history in Urban Meyer. And when I was talking about the Saints and their hiring of, or not hiring, signing of Derek Carr, and I was talking about the Raiders being idiots for hiring Josh McDaniels, that still is not as dumb as hiring Urban Meyer. still have no idea what the Jags are thinking with that. And that went so miserably, so quickly, and the Jags pretty much had to, do a 180 midway through the year. It was just that bad. So I really don't know what they were thinking, and I still don't know what they were thinking. Um, but Trevor Lawrence, the young quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, whatever happened during that Urban Meyer season completely flipped around once they brought in a legitimate head coach. Then of course they have another young and running back at Travis Etienne. James Robinson got traded out because of Etienne, but Etienne's a good running back, of course. College teammates in Lawrence and Travis. And then you got the receiving core where they got the unlikely product of a number one receiver in Christian Kirk, who was like a slot guy for the Cardinals. Everybody was like, holy crap, that is a gross overpay. Instead, he ends up putting up a really good season. Of course, they also got themselves Calvin Ridley in a trade with the Atlanta Falcons. He was obviously suspended a whole season due to being an idiot and betting, which I'm not even going to go over the NFL's weird and strange betting rules because it just doesn't. Some of them just don't make sense. And then at tight end, they of course have Evan Engram, and the offensive line is solid. And they also drafted offensive lineman Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. So I have Cam Robinson. I think he's suspended for a couple games though. Um, and then you look at the defense. You of course have Josh Allen. You have actually Kalavon Chase. I don't think he really plays that much. He hasn't been very good for him. But they also where's he at? I don't even see him on here. And I'm trying to remember his name because I really don't remember. Um, Edge out of Georgia. Why can I not remember his name? Obviously taken in front of Aiden Hutchinson. Um, yeah, I really Trayvon Walker. There we go. I'm trying to like come up with it. I'm like, what is his name? I should know this, but yeah, Trayvon Walker. Of course, they have him as well. Oh, there he is. Just way. Why did they list him as a linebacker? And then their defense is probably the most suspect. Um, but overall, the Jags they have a solid offense. Like I said, the defense is probably the biggest question for them. How will the defense hold up? And if you were to look at statistics from a year ago, in terms of like defenses and how teams did, and New Orleans, actually, there's more stats for the Saints. They actually gave up the fifth least amounts of yards a game last year. Yeah. Um, but for the Jacksonville Jaguars, their defense, there's the Lions. But for the Jags, their defense was towards the bottom of the league. They're in the bottom 10, which isn't that bad, but it still isn't good. And that obviously was a big reason why they tended to struggle. And if I were to look at the passing yards, they were the fifth worst in passing yards per game. Um, they were decent in terms of rushing yards, but they were the fifth worst in giving up passing yards per game. So obviously, secondary help is probably something that the Jags will be looking for. Overall, this is a good team, and of course, they gave the Chiefs a little bit of a run for their money in the playoffs due to the fact that Patrick Mahomes got hurt. But the Jags are a solid overall team, and the Jags should easily, well, I don't know about easily, but they should win the division, and they'll probably be the team that comes out of this division. The only team though that I'd really see competing with them is right here, and that is the Tennessee Titans. Their team is okay. We're gonna go over first. We'll go over their schedule as I have with the rest of these teams, and then I'll go over their I'll first go over the schedule, and then I'll go over the roster. So, starting with the schedule here for the Tennessee Titans, they head on the road to start off the season to take on the New Orleans Saints in the opener before they get the LA Chargers at home, then head out on the road to take on the Cleveland Browns, home to the Bengals. Those are two brutal home games. Then they head on the road to take on the Indy Colts, and then we'll head out to London to take on the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, a lot of history between those two teams, Titans and Ravens. Before the Titans will get their bye for the season, and then they'll be back at home taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Then we'll get the Steelers, Bucks, and Jags all on the road. Then we'll get the Panthers and Colts at home. Then we'll take on Miami on the road before getting Houston and Seattle back at home. Texans once again after Seattle on the road. So uh, they'll play Houston twice in 3 weeks. And then they'll get the Jags back at home to end the season. Obviously, the Titans have had a massive issue with one thing, and that is then their passing game. And they have mightily struggled. This team was really interesting. If you looked at statistics, you could tell what their desperate needs were last season. If you looked at it, you look at the defense for the Tennessee Titans, they had the best rush defense in the entire league. Better than San Fran, better than the Bills, better than Baltimore, better than New England. All those defenses, their rush defense was better than all of them. They gave up the least amount of rushing yards per game, and nobody gave up less yards than the Titans all year long, which is really impressive. But they also gave up the most amount of passing yards per game. And of course, nobody gave up more passing yards than the Titans all year long. So you could really tell what was the desperate need on defense. And then you look at their offensive outputs. They had the third worst passing offense in the league. And their rushing game kind of suffered because of that, and they were middle of the pack. But of course, everybody knows Derrick Henry is a fantastic running back. But when you lack really a good passing game, uh, it really makes things difficult on your running back when he's trying to find holes, and well, no one's scared of you throwing the football, so they just load the box constantly. So that was a big issue for him last year. But we look at the roster here. Will Levis, they drafted in the second round, and I will always feel so bad for that guy. He was supposed to be like a top 10 pick, top 5 pick. And of course, nobody took him in the top 10. And so, literally, ever since like the top 15 passed, they legit kept showing the dude in his disappointed face as nobody would take him. And it was so sad. It's like, yeah, that's so wrong, man. That's brutal. I mean, give the guy some privacy. Come on now. But Levis gets taken by the Titans, so I'm sure he'll probably be the man of the future, or will at least be competition for Malik Willis to unlock his overall potential. And then, of course, you still got Derrick Henry as the number one running back. You also got Hassan Haskins as the reserve guy. For the Titans, although he did get arrested recently for a charge of assault, so that isn't good. And then the receiving core, obviously this was the big issue for them last year. So you wonder, well, what did they do to try and fix that problem this year? Well, they signed DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, really impressive. Obviously, Hopkins was released by the Cardinals after a lot of mess in Arizona. He got released by the Cardinals. He said he wanted to go to a contender. A lot of people thought he might go to the Patriots. And instead, he signs with the Tennessee Titans. Now, he'll clearly be the number one option. and should be a very nice mentor for the young receiver Treylon Burks, of which the Titans trying to basically make their new AJ Brown just a cheaper version. That still is the dumbest thing I think the Titans could have done. I mean, AJ Brown was a fantastic receiver. He wanted some money, and instead of giving him his money, they trade him away so that they could get what they thought was a cheaper version of him. And it's like, just pay the man, okay? There's nothing wrong with paying probably one of the best receivers in the league. There's no reason not to do that. What they do, they trade him away. He ends up being even better with the Philly Eagles. I mean, it, and I know Titans fans get really irritated with that because, like I said, they would have had a fantastic receiver. They would have had a fantastic player, and instead they trade him away so that they could not have to pay him, which is so stupid in my opinion. Um, but Tennessee Titans, DeAndre Hopkins is a enormous signing for Tennessee. Having Treylon Burks is nice as well. As I said, Hopkins can be a mentor. He can a 1-2 punch at receiver. Definitely helps out quite a bit. Tight end is a bit of a crapshoot. Uh, I remember who did get a little bit of attention last year. It's like Chigos. I don't remember how you pronounce it, but I'm gonna try it here. Chigozim Okonkwo. I don't know how you pronounce his first name, but the last name's Okonkwo. Obviously, another big issue for the Titans was poor offensive line play, of which they did try and fix that a little bit as they went ahead and drafted Northwestern Peter Skoronski, a very good offensive lineman who will certainly help them out quite a bit. The run defense still remains pretty stout, and then in terms of the secondary, they didn't really get much, but they have a lot of really young corners. I mean, I have yet to really see a corner. Yeah, they don't have a single corner over 26 years old. That is crazy. And Caleb Farley will actually be healthy, I'm pretty sure, this year, so that'll be a nice guy to bring back. They still have Kevin Byard. Um, yeah, their secondary is very young. The oldest dude in their entire secondary is 29 years old. So that tells you enough about how young that their secondary is. Which, like I said, was their big issue last season. So we'll see if anything can be fit. Actually, I'm looking at this team. I've barely seen anybody over 30 on this roster. Dang. I didn't realize they were that young. Oh, there's Tannehill. But the Titans, they're an interesting team. They clearly have dire needs on different ends of the ball. They have a dire secondary need. They had a dire offensive line need, as well as a receiving need, of which they tried to cover all bases. Um, but the Titans, they're probably the next best bet to win this division. They'll probably compete a little bit with the Jags. It's going to be one of those two. I don't really know if I believe in the Titans that much, but I don't know if they'll be 7-10 this year. They might be more like 9-8. I think 9-8 is probably fair for this team, but I still think no matter what their record is, they'll probably be a tad bit short of the Jags. So now we move on to the next team in this division, and that is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. So let's go over the Colts schedule here. Don't know why I did that. So going over the Colts schedule here, they will have the Jacksonville Jaguars to start off the season before they head on the road, or at Jags at home this season before they will head on the road to take on both the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. Then they will head back at home. Then they'll go back home at Lucas Oil to take on both the LA Rams and the Tennessee Titans. Head back on the road to take on the Jags again. Then we'll get the Browns and Saints at home, Panthers on the road, And I can't remember if that's a Germany game or a London game. I believe it might be a Germany game, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look and see. Uh, Frankfurt? I don't know. Think that's I don't think that's an England game. I think that's a I don't remember which one it is. I think it's an England game. It might well New England. It would make sense for it to be England, but um I don't know if it's an England game or a Germany game. I'm assuming since it's New England, it might just be England, but it might be an England game, but I quite frankly do not know, so I really have no clue. And then they'll get their bye. Then they'll take on the Tampa Bay Bucks at home, along with and head on the road to take on the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals. Back home against the Steelers, on the road against the Falcons, and then at home against the Raiders and the Texans to finish off the season. This team, um, they are in serious trouble, and there's several reasons why. First of all, I'll start with one reason, and that is their moron owner Jim Irsay. That guy says some of the weirdest stuff I have absolutely ever heard, and he just kind of tears this team down. I mean, he's been known for just not being. He just everybody knows the guy's a jerk, and that's the issue. And it's so bad that their young, promising running back Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade out of Indy. And since they really don't have the most stout defense. They don't really have the most stout passing attack. That is really the one of the lone bright spots on the team, and the fact that he wants out is very concerning and very disturbing because, well, if they do end up trading him away, they have nothing. So it's a mess in Indy. They do have Anthony Richardson, who is a really intriguing quarterback. He is massive. He is also a dual threat player. He also has an absolute cannon for an arm, but he also doesn't have any idea where it's going. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Indy Colts do. They also don't really have the greatest of receivers. I mean, Michael Pittman is a good receiver, of course. They drafted Josh Downs, but really, that's mostly all they have. Their tight end room is uh, sketchy to say the least. They do have Jelani Woods, but nothing really to write home about. And as I said, the defense isn't really necessarily, stout. It's got a couple pieces here and there, but it's just not necessarily what I would consider, amazing by any real stretch. But these indie Colts are, I mean, they're getting young, but really, I think Jim Irsay, until he's gone as the owner, this indie Colt team is probably going to struggle for a while. I mean, because I mean, it really sucks that the Colts are being dragged down by their owner, but there's some owners that are very hands on. There are some owners that are very hands off and just don't really care. It depends on really the owner. Like I said, there are some owners who really just don't care what the team does. I mean, they might check in and just make sure the team. I mean, they just want the team to do well, and they just trust the guys that are, the GMs, the head coaches. They just entrust those guys, and they trust the players of which they get to do that. But there's other owners that are very hands-on, and they like to kind of get involved quite a bit. And that's Jim Irsay. Uh, it obviously has not been what they would be hoping for, but the Colts are in a rough spot, and being stuck with Jim Irsay as an owner also really sucks. But That's the situation the Colts have themselves in. And now we move on to our last team here in the AFC, and this one's probably going to go pretty quick because they really are actually very bad. And that is the Houston Texans. So let's just go over their schedule. We'll do a quick little short analysis of the team, and then just move on. So we have the Baltimore Ravens to start off the year on the road. That's an L. Then they take on the Indy Colts at home before heading on the road to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then they go back on. Then they head back home again to take on the Steelers. On the road again to take on the Falcons. Back home again to take on New Orleans Saints. So kind of seeing a pattern here as it's basically just going back and forth the entire time. Then the Texans will get their bye before they take on the Carolina Panthers on the road. I really think it almost essentially the entire time goes back and forth. They'll go home to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then we'll be on the road to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Then our home to take on Arizona, might be their only win of the year. And then they'll be and they'll get two more games at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos before heading on the road to take on both the Jets and the Titans. Back home again to take on the Browns and once again the Titans, and then on the road to finish the year against the Indy Colts. Obviously, they made an aggressive trade in the draft to go and get themselves two picks in the top three, as they drafted both C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. That might be the most exciting thing of which they have, because the rest of the team they did draft Henry Toto. I think I'm saying that right. He was good. They actually also signed Jimmy Ward. Of course, their new head coach is D'Amico Ryans, the former defensive coordinator for the San Fran 49ers. They, of course, still have Derek Stingley. But really, to be entirely honest, I mean, they might have a new head coach and they might bring in a new culture, but this team still is not poised to win games, and they no longer have Brandon Cooks either, which it seems like that guy is constantly getting traded. But, just like I said, they did actually sign Devin Singletary, young running back from the Buffalo Bills, along with still having Damian Pierce. As I said, there's just nothing really that much exciting to talk about for Houston. They're not a great team. I'm sure nobody really expects them to be good either. So, they actually do have Robert Woods. I didn't even realize that. They did sign Dalton Schultz as well, so they're trying to make improvements to the offense, give guys for C.J. Stroud to throw to. But yeah, that's really it. I don't really have much else to say. So that's it for this for the AFC South. I still got the East divisions to do. I really want to get in the New York Jets as they're one of the teams that are playing in the Hall of Fame game along with these Browns here. So those are the next two divisions I'm going to do. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Until next time, adios, everybody.